All right, we live on Zoom. I was thinking about
Do you got lip balm?
no.
You don't? What's the name of that?
We started our design company here with Wolf. This is not how we do that.
Hey, welcome YouTube. Welcome. About to get started in just a second. Setting up a few things real quick. What's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Yes, it is Tuesday. We're on here live. Marriage Talk, guys. Welcome, wifey's coming in shortly, guys. I know I'm all up in the TV. I mean, video. So, you want this chair? You want this chair now? If you're not pregnant no more, you can have the boss chair back.
Yeah, you suck the lean on it,
All right.
baby.
There you go. You got it.
Look, I can fix my eyes, yo. You got me looking wild.
I'm switching her to the boss chair.
Got me looking wild though.
She back in boss mode.
Oh my gosh, look, babe. You didn't even tell me my eyeliner is falling.
Fine, baby. You fine. You've been taking care of baby.
All full time. Full time,
Okay.
brother. Brandon just been looking cute walking around the house, just slinging his thing around so I could try to get some. That's what he's been doing. Hey, what's up, cuzzo? You know, we about to talk about, I don't even know, did he put a title? He did, about your marriage role models. Who are your role models? Talk to us. Other couples, or is there one? Is it multiple? Is it a few? Talk to us. Do you look up to somebody? I know for me, and you know, this could be in many ways. This can be like a family and like someone famous. Can I get a pillow there?
Yeah, we don't own the rights to this music.
No rights to this music. Can I get a pillow? The yellow one. So, who is your marriage mentors or role models or coaches? Like who do you look up to, or who do you go to, or you know? It's right here. You looking for this?
Yeah.
Gotta talk, dude. Close mouth don't get fed. So, Mr. Barker came up with this topic tonight. So I'm gonna let him kind of roll through his. I know.
Yes.
Move back a little bit.
So let's
we can
talk,
see
guys. Let's
too.
talk. Who are your marriage role models, right? And I wanted to get into this conversation because I started to think about this a little bit.
Yeah, where did this come from?
And I started to think like, who did I look to as a marriage role model in my life growing up? Or who did I see like that was like the perfect marriage that
Perfect or like good marriage?
or a good marriage that I wanted to like, oh, when I get older, I want my marriage to be like that. You
Did
know?
you really say that though?
No, I didn't. All right.
That's
No,
right there.
no, I didn't say that. And that was the funny
I
thing.
don't think a lot of people do until like you're older. You finally have like boundaries for like expectations.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Guess what? Let me tell you. I can tell you somebody I did now that I think about it.
Uh-oh.
Now that I think about it, it was a married couple that I saw their family life. And I said, man, I kind of would want, don't do too much, girl.
I know.
I kind of would want my family to kind of resemble their family in a
Who's that?
sense.
Yeah, kind of like in that language versus role model,
Yeah.
which is similar.
And the thing is, this is the funny thing about that family, right?
From my wife.
The funny thing is, it was one of those marriage of once the kids got to an age of graduating.
They separated?
Yes.
So you said that when they were together when you were younger?
Yes, as growing up, you know. And I was
I'm
like,
not gonna say
wow,
this.
that's fine. So
So
And-
wait, so when did that happen though? So you looked up to them when you were younger?
yes.
Because they were happily ever after.
Yeah, and the family was together and they was just growing, and I seen the growth in the family, right?
Mhm.
And so I'm thinking everything is all gravy and
Yeah.
good, you know what I mean? But
Till.
until
Take it.
I found out that
Just pull it off.
the whole thing was going downhill.
Since it was younger.
Well, not since we was younger, but that it was not where it was we thought it was.
Yeah, who was, well, I guess you probably don't want to.
Yeah, I'm not
They
gonna
all
mention.
blast and then.
Yeah, no. But it's close relative to me, and I was like, it's a family of three, you know, and I was like, oh, I would love to have
So
that.
like 3 siblings or just one child, 2 parents?
Three siblings, right? And so I was like, man, I would like my family to, you know, kind of resemble that as growing up.
Yeah.
Now, what I wanted to get into is,
But how did you feel when they split up?
well, see, it
Wait,
was
so
a
this time,
it was a
sorry.
big shocker to me. What you mean? You ain't cold, are you?
No.
Okay.
Actually, this boy, I'm about to put this boy down.
It was a big shocker to me, and I think it was a big shocker to one of the siblings that was the youngest sibling too as well, you know?
Yeah.
And we
So
didn't
they
know.
probably thought what you thought.
Yeah, that everything was going good, you know? So, and then I said, is some people now, do you have a role model marriage that somebody that you was like, and that's one thing. I could say I did, but I didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I didn't really have a family that I really looked at. And so I wanted to just give you a couple background on me and just
Well, I was gonna say that too, babe, when it comes to role models, like in your case, you see a couple, a marriage that you're like, oh, they're so like perfect and they're doing so good. And then they're really not. So it gets really fishy of what's real or good or not in real life.
right.
Because a lot of people now are, well, not even a lot of people in marriages. I've seen so many marriages that, you know, people, you put up a front. I see a lot of marriages that you're like, oh, they're so happy, they're so great. And then a year later, they're like filing for divorce.
Yeah.
Or 10 years later.
Well, what
And, you know,
happened?
things happen, and I understand things happen. You know, you go through some trials and challenges, but I'm talking about that couple that for years you were like, man, they look like that whole what is that, like nice house with the white picket fence and the dog, like the whole nice
Fairy
perfect fairy tale, but the whole time it's been a fake unhappiness.
Yes.
Well, no, fake happiness because they've been unhappy.
Yeah, they've been
So
unhappy.
it gets hard. Like, how do you know who's real or not?
And that's the thing right there. So when you come across those type of situations, it's really hard to just figure out, you know, what marriage do you look at as a role model and what values do you have? You know what I mean? So whatever values you have and you see somebody that's implicating those values as well,
Right.
then that's someone you're going to look to as more of a role model or something, you know, or a
vice
mentor.
versa. Or vice versa. They could teach you some not qualifications, but like, for example, with my role model, it was my grandparents, of course, they taught me on understanding the role of the wife, understanding the role of the husband. So I learned from them what I was seeing versus what they were telling me.
Now, did you learn from your grandmother or you learned from your grandmother and grandfather?
From both.
So you learn from both. And that's another thing too. When it comes from learning who you're learning from and it's different culture backgrounds, like, you know, she has a Latin background and I have an African American background, and it's different on how we learn who and how the role models affect us. And I'm just going to get into a backstory about my grandparents. And this is funny, right? This is going to be really.
Well, it's interesting how our role models are not our parents.
Well, that's another thing. See, so our role models are not our parents,
As
right?
far as
As
marriage.
far as marriage, because my mom was married twice, and both relationship wasn't the best,
Well, first we start with your dad.
and
They separate. Shoot, that was one of the
yeah,
marriages.
yeah, she was married to my dad, and then they was kind of young
So
when
she
they
was
got
married
married.
one time after your dad.
Yes. And so after that time, I thought everything was good too. She was happy, but that marriage wasn't working, you know. And so far as your mom, how
So
was
you
that?
didn't even get to look up to your own parents because you were younger.
Right. I didn't see that model,
Yeah.
right?
And then for me, my mom and dad, they were together till he passed away. So I didn't really get to really see much of that. And then even I was older, I was 9. So you would think I would kind of remember. But the difference in my situation is my mom was here in the US and my father was in Colombia
Mhm.
for I think almost like a couple years. So I was maybe from like 7 to 9 years old or 6 to 9, I was mainly here and he was there and we would go back and forth.
Right.
So as far as like me remembering goals or like fatherly stuff or parenting, it wasn't, I don't really remember much.
Now, so what I go back to is, like I said, my parents wasn't my role model as far as
Mhm.
marriage, so I have to go a little bit deeper, which was my grandparents. Most of us, I'm gonna just be honest, most African American grandparents have been together for a long time through
Well,
thick and
no,
thin.
I don't think it's just African American. I think the back then
Yeah,
generations.
you're right.
I think if we look at the difference in generations
I agree with you on that.
in the time now, because now it's so easy for people to quit and divorce and bounce.
Yeah,
Like, you know
you're
what,
right.
I'm
You're
leaving
right.
done. Back then, with not even my parents, with the grandparents,
They stood together.
there was no such thing as we're leaving,
Yeah,
we're separating, we're
it don't
divorced.
matter if it
Like
was
back then, marriage is marriage.
Yeah, you're right. They stuck together.
Like I'm talking about even through infidelities. Like,
Yeah, and
they
if
stayed there.
but that was one of those things that if it was type of infidelity in those marriage, those things was kept under the rug. That thing was
Yeah.
kept sealed. If you had a
But
brother
it
that
was
you
a
didn't know
different type
that
of
he was your
respect.
brother, but he
Yeah.
was still your brother. You better not come out saying that ain't your brother.
Exactly.
So
I think it was different. I really not. I don't think I know the timing was different when it comes to the cultures
yeah, you're
in
right.
general. What people thought of marriage
Yeah.
then.
And that's the thing. So with me, and this is a funny thing, right? So I'm gonna go off of my mother. When I see Nick, my mother parents, they was married for several years, probably more than probably like I'm gonna say 25, 35 plus years, right?
Yeah, that's all it
I'm gonna
was.
say that because they got married at a young age. But the thing about my mom parents is I never saw no affection between them.
It's interesting because affection for back in the day is not affection what it is today.
It was more private.
It was more private. Well, for me, I would see little implications of like the butt smack a little, or I'm not gonna sit here and say I can recall my grandparents, kissing all the time,
Yeah, yeah.
but I saw it every now and then, I did see like he would go and give her a kiss, or she would go, or he would go and try to like tap her butt, or but it
Yeah.
wasn't like you're saying like now, like how people display emotion and love.
And see, the thing is, as far as like on my
Which
dad's
is
side,
interesting.
it is very interesting. On my dad's side, I did see the affection. I did see my
yeah?
grandmother kiss my grandfather.
Oh, nice.
But those things happen at like Christmas events
Oh,
and
see,
stuff like
yeah.
that, holidays,
But not like
when they
every
would
day.
take pictures
Yeah.
together and stuff like that. I would see that type of stuff. But it wasn't like an everyday thing that I would see far as my grandparents. And like I said, my mother parents, I never saw that, but I knew that they was married for a long time. And my grandmother, she was kind of a little bit on the rough side of things.
Mhm.
And my grandfather was more on the like laid back side of things.
It must be a back in the day thing, because that's how my grandparents were.
Yeah, my grandmother was really rough around the edges, and my grandfather was more laid back. And the thing about that grandparents is My mom, she was deep into the church, but I never seen my grandmother or grandfather go to church.
Oh, really?
Never seen them go to church at all. Not one day
That's
I can
interesting.
remember. Right? But my mom,
Which is your mom's mom.
yeah, which is my mom's mom, my mom was deep in the church far as choir. Man, she had us in church.
How she got into church?
Not really, but I know my mom was in the church so much I felt like I was the manager of the choir team, right? I'm talking about I was there for Bible study, everything. Like we closed the church
But
down.
her parents had a good marriage.
See, I never seen them argue.
Yeah, that's another thing. I believe that back in the day, arguments in marriages were private, were secretive,
Yeah.
were very, no, I'm talking about like intense. Like I'm talking about like disrespect type of stuff. I don't think that really occurred.
Now, on my dad's side, that did occur. The arguments every now and then, but it was more in a playful way too, as well. You know,
That's what I'm saying. I think back then marriage was looked upon so differently.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So, do marriage change with the times?
I think it's the people, the generations that make it change, the social media.
Or is it more open
world.
now, as far as your marriage is being more open than what it was? Because kind of more like back in the day, it was kind of you knew that it was married, but our marriage wasn't like public like it is.
Like there was, my grandparents wasn't talking about sex.
Yeah. Or they wasn't, they didn't, and that's another thing. They didn't have a lot of the tools and resources that we have now.
Right, exactly.
To actually grow your marriage and to understand how marriage work and the friendship and the counseling session and all these things right now that play a part. And then it was also the dynamic of how they got married.
Oh yeah, some of them were set up.
Someone was set up.
Some of them were young.
Young, yes. And someone was, forced to marry, different. So that kind of plays a real, dynamic part to who was your role model. And then I look at like I said, that was my mom's side. But then on the flip side, my dad's parents, they showed some affections during the holiday season. They was always at family event.
But your dad's family is way outspoken.
They're way outspoken. So my grandmother and grandfather, they would argue, but we would call it snapping. They would snap on each other, like joke.
Like your aunt, like Ali Roof used to.
Yeah. So they would be jokey, but that's the way they showed their love to each other. And like that's what we had to understand as young, because I would say, Dad, Grandma is arguing with Grandpa, and he was like, nah, they just joking. They just be snapping on each other, and that's how they show their affection and love, So that's the way they groomed themselves to love each other and stuff during that time.
So your role model was which parents?
And so that's the thing.
Both?
The role model part didn't really come into putting my marriage or implicating. What came to me was longevity. With both of these marriages, what I saw was longevity. And what I understood was longevity. And I can't say whether they was happy or they was unhappy.
That's another thing. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's another thing. Like back in the day, I can't either. Like I would assume my grandmother was happy because she would be like how much she loved each other. Like when my grandmother passed, my grandfather was devastated how much he loved her. They were together.
Or was it the fact that they was together so long?
Exactly. Yeah. So
it's like, and that's the thing, like when it came.
Which I know they loved each other, of course, but was it something by choice from the beginning all those years? Because you got to remember too, back in the day, they didn't have 1 or 2 kids. They had 10, 15, 20 kids. Yeah. So now you're like, imagine, I'm thinking, Brett ain't going nowhere. This is the 3rd one. He's not going nowhere. Right. Imagine 10 kids, 15. We gotta help each other. Live together till death do us part, 70, 80 years later.
We gotta work this out.
So it's way different scenarios. I do believe in like when my role models and my grandparents, my grandfather, he did everything possible to make sure my grandmother was always happy.
Right.
That's one thing that we can say, even if they weren't happy,
Now,
whatever.
so was making her happy being the provider, or was he going out his way to do certain things to make her happy?
It will be both, excuse me. So with my grandfather, I saw a lot of providing. My grandmother never worked.
Yeah.
And I think again, it goes back to the times.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe some of your
Yeah.
people, probably back in the day, maybe the women didn't really work like that.
Right.
Which that's how it should be. But anyways, raising all those 10, 15, 20 kids. So my grandmother never worked. It was my grandfather providing for everybody. But he also in the house did certain things. Like I would always see him, grab if she needed to get something, he would go get it for her, or he would, set up like a certain like the coffee for her. So like he had his routine on what he would always do to make sure she was happy and she was okay.
Right. And
Kind of like doing for each other.
And you know what that comes back to is something that I heard last week, right? A man buys the house and the man buys the house, right? He provides and buy the house, but the wife make the house a home.
Right.
You know,
that's a good one.
right? Yes. So the wife makes the house a home, right? And that's the thing about it, right? You buy the house, but you make it a home, right? Yeah. And that's the great thing about having a wife, because she makes it so
she should.
Yeah, she should make it so comforting, inviting, a safe place.
Well, I also do think that, like you're saying with the grandparents, I think a lot of these new marriages and like the generations should really go back and look at like back in the time grandparent marriage.
Yeah.
Like the values, the loyalty, the respect. And I know everyone has a different perspective or idea, but like even now, like you said, now I remember things my grandma used to tell me when I was younger and I didn't understand, but now that I'm married, I'm like, oh, that's what she was talking about. Oh, yeah. This is what she meant. Like I remember when I was younger, she would say certain comments like about like my grandfather, or he would say something to her. And I used to be like, what? Like,
and think about it. Think about this too. And I'm now that you talked about it, a lot of, they said they had a lot of kids, right? Most of our grandparents had a lot of kids. And think about the discussions they had about their kids. It wasn't out in front of the kids. Those late night bedroom talks that they had about the different kids. Mm-hmm. Because you're not going to just talk about one kid. You got multiple kids. So you got to talk about what's going on with each one of them, how one of them was feeling. And I'm pretty sure they had those conversations back in the day. I also wanted to talk about, with my dad's mom, she was deep into the church. Like we stayed over at that grandma's house, we going to Sunday school. It's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You going, my dad actually told me a story about one time they was going to church so much with my grandmother on his side. He talked about it one time. They was going to church through the woods, and it was a snake. And it was either turn back to the house and hear their mom say, "Oh, you about to go back to the church and kill that snake."
Go through the snake.
And they killed that snake and went on to church, right?
Well, see, but again, it goes back to values. It goes back to the values that your grandmother instilled in your dad. Mm-hmm. Which it's interesting because now there's different thoughts and our parents' values. So it's like if our grandparents were here to hear our parents' values, they would be upset.
Right.
Like, wait a minute, I didn't teach you that. Like, why are you changing that up? I never said it like that.
So, like I said, with that, then, what we looked at as on my end, I looked more at the longevity.
Yeah.
I didn't look at the affection part. Now, I did. I had somebody that I grew up with that was close to me. Mm-hmm. Where I thought that was really going on in a family, and I was like, wow, they got one of the awesome families, that I would like my family to be. But then at the end of the day, it wasn't all cracked up to be because they end up having a divorce.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
In that year. So what was really going on behind the curtains, I don't know,
Which is something that you learn from too.
Something that you learn from.
Like you don't want to be that person that someone's looking up to you. And then 15 years later, you divorce or, whatever may happen. And now you're like, oh, that's the same thing that I didn't want to go through.
So far as your grandparents, that was the major role model. Did you see Was it any aunts or
Well,
uncles?
so,
and
okay,
stuff
so
like
that, well, that's what I was gonna say. So, and I think this stems from my grandparents because all my family members from when I was younger, they all were married.
Mm-hmm.
All my aunts have husbands, all my uncles have wives. The only one that really was kind of back and forth, it was my mother because my father passed. But besides that, I saw that in the house. I saw, we're talking about Connecticut, like we're not Georgia houses. Connecticut houses are way better. Okay, thank you. And these are houses that are 3, 4 floors because there's basements and
Multiple families.
multiple family house. But yeah, okay, so you guys know how everyone talks about generational wealth, generational wealth. Well, back then, that's what our family started. Like, we're gonna buy a multi-family home and we're all gonna live there and own it and rent it and blah blah blah. So when I was younger, it was, my grandmother and grandfather on the first floor, my aunt and uncle on the second floor, my other uncle on the third floor, and then I lived there too with my mother. On the first floor and my room with my cousin on the third floor. So growing up in that living scenario, I saw my grandparents' marriage, I saw my aunt's marriage, I saw my uncle's marriage. And then across the way, like literally I can walk one house over, turn the corner, that's where Marvin and Milton lived. And then they also had the 2 floors with my 2 uncles and the wives, because remember, they married each other's siblings. So they all lived in one house. And that's how we all grew up together, and then Will was like a block away with his mom and dad and the brothers. So that's what I saw. Growing up, everybody really was married in my family, except for my mom's situation. So for me, in my mind, when I was younger, my thing was always get married, and have kids. It wasn't just be a baby mother.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't, like, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I saw it on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
But not like in our house.
And see, so far as me, I did see my uncles. They was married for a long time. My aunt, that just recently passed away. Her husband was married. I love their family, and that was a good, good people to see. Like the way, my uncle was with my aunt was very, inspiring. She just recently passed, and she probably was more of a vocalist, but he was a calm man. And the thing is,
those are the marriages that last.
Yeah, and they really worked together, right? They really was a real partnership. And I'm talking about pretty much my aunt that just passed and her husband, my Uncle Thomas. And so when I seen them together, it was more of like, he was helpful. He was
like a partnership.
Like a partnership. Yeah, they
like a partnership, but not as some people would say that marriage is a business. We're not talking about it like that. We're talking about it as a partnership, and this is your spouse. This is not just a lover and a soulmate, but this is also your partner. This is who you tag team with. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, and I saw the success of their marriage. I saw the growth in their marriage too. And even with, as far as just their family growing and just being together, and always wanted to be a family orientated type of growth within their family. And that's another thing, a family growing within a family.
Now, did you ever see him get loud or disrespectful with her?
No, I never seen him get loud or disrespectful with her.
See, and it's good because that's what I think. Even if the wife is the loud one, because that's how my grandmother was. She was always the
vocal,
said what she said,
the mouth of the house, right?
Just like brush it off, and probably talking to his breath or something, but they understood each other,
right?
They related to one another. Now, however, even though she was the vocal one, she knew not to cross my grandfather.
Right. She knew her boundaries.
Because my grandfather didn't play like, okay, you're not going to sit here and disrespect me. Like, no, like my grandfather also, when it came down to it, he was not the nicest of the person that you want to get upset. Like, that's one thing with my grandfather. He's not the one. Like, he's not the one. So she knew though. that this is the respect, this is the loyalty, this
She
is
knew
the
how far she could go, and then she'd back off. like-
exactly. And then right, so the partnership though, you
Yeah.
know, because it will be hand in hand. If she wanted something but he didn't, she kind of worked it out. If he wanted something that she didn't like, well, she kind of worked it out. And that's one thing I always told my grandparents, because we would be like, man, why is she doing that? Like that looks. One of the things we used to all cannot stand is my grandfather used to eat some stuff like out of the pot. Like he used to just grab it and just eat it. And we used to be like, dude, like get a plate. Like, what are you doing? And we would tell my grandmother, but she would just let him be. Like she wouldn't trip. She wasn't like tripping. She would just sometimes she even put it on the table for him. Like, here you go. And it was just something you would see between them because everybody used to be like, grandpa, like you get a plate, a bowl, something. Like that's just rude. That's just not nice. That's not cool. And my grandma just used to be like, that's how he likes it. Like, let him be.
But you know what? That probably was the respect of this is his house.
Yeah.
Y'all in his house.
That's
Y'all,
right.
y'all eating his food. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So you got that respect of, all right, you in Big Papa house. He got the big piece of chicken, okay? All right, and then y'all can eat later, you know? And that was that respect issue. That's why she didn't trip, because she made the food that he provided for her to make.
Yeah.
And he was getting the first.
Yeah.
And so if it first was getting it out the pot, then that's what it was.
Right.
And if y'all didn't want to eat, oh well.
That's so funny.
You know what I mean? So that's how that works. That's how that issue works right there.
So see, that for me is I just learned when it comes to role models. I just learned when watching my grandparents, you know, now that I think of it, because now that I'm married, is understanding certain things of the household for the husband, for the man. You know, certain, like you just said, that was her way of respecting him as the provider and the leader in the home. Would just like whatever, let him be. Like I'm not gonna sit here and trip over a pot. Like this is ridiculous.
And it's his food.
And he probably paid for the pot. So
Yeah.
you know, so just little stuff like that I would learn. And of course she would run her mouth underneath every now and then about it, like, you know, here, get a plate too. But he'll be like, for what? Like, no, I'm just gonna use this pot. Like
Yeah. And see, so certain things like that back in the day, they looked at it as like, you know, it was a compliment to your grandmother. Because she's like, the food smells so good, tastes so good, he can't even wait for it to get into the bowl and plate. He want to taste it now,
that
right?
was his bowl.
Yeah, he was ready to go ahead and dig in. That was just, you know, maybe, you know, that's what he felt. And so besides just your family members and
Any other
relatives,
role models?
yeah, who outside that you saw, like a friend that you grew up with? Did you see, like, you know, I know you got a friend, now, I know you got a friend, his father just passed away, and he's a close friend to you. How did their marriage and his mom and dad, did you see how they interact?
Yeah, so one of my best friends, his parents, they were together forever. And I just, again, it's just the culture, you know, they're Haitian. So I noticed a lot of boundaries, you know, he provided and she did too, of course, but he was the main, you know, leader, the provider. And I noticed a lot of, like you said, the partnership and letting him do what made him happy. Like his thing was cars and being outside and hanging out with the kids and everybody. And she'll be in the house with the mom and just kind of letting him be. And this is what I like is learning how to let your husband be in your own home. Like, and I try to tell some of my friends, like, girl, like, I don't even trip no more. Like, if Brandon said, oh, I'm gonna go get a beer, or I'm gonna go watch the game or something at the house. I'm like, sure, watch it at home, because you know how many husbands go in the streets or don't even want to be home and they go to the bars or the clubs or the strip clubs, you don't even know it. There's different places. Whereas your husband, like you said, you want this to be a home. That's what I noticed with them. She made it a home. If he wanted to work on cars outside and have his music and hang out with the kids and play basketball, she was like, okay, you know, she wasn't tripping. She cooked, everything was cool. We all used to hang out there after high school, and he was like the cool dad. Like, we all used to hang out or whatever. And just making it a home where he was happy there.
That's very important.
You know, versus, oh, I'm gonna go to my boys after work and we're gonna play basketball outside of their house.
And that's another important key that you just mentioned. It's the fact that the wife make it a home where the husband don't feel he has to leave his home to be who he really want to be or to let loose or just be, yeah, he still feels like he's in his zone, you know what I mean? And even though the wife is in the house, he's still in his area or wherever he's at, still enjoying his time being at home instead of saying, man, I'm out of here, you know what I mean? I'm in her way, you know,
She got
everything
me doing, what's that list?
honey-do list.
She got me doing this whole list today. I just
Which
don't know.
every man gets the honey-do list, you know.
But sometimes we gotta take it easy too.
Yeah, every marriage, you're gonna get a honey-do list.
I know, but what I'm saying is sometimes you gotta take it easy too. Like there's times, like a few times I've seen you be outside play with the boys. I could be like, okay, no, brother, can you help me with this other situation? But I just, no, just hang out with the boys.
Right, because you see value in that. You get what I'm saying? It's certain things you gotta understand is when you see your husband or your wife in their element and they're with their girlfriends at the house, or he's with his homeboys at the house, or she's playing with the kids, or he's playing with the kids. Let them stay in that element. Let them stay in that zone.
Of course, you can still have boundaries.
Yeah, you can still have boundaries, but let them stay somewhat into that zone of happiness in the household. That great energy.
Because if he's happy with the kids and you're not letting him be, he'll find some other kids to be happy with. I'm saying that right now.
And I know that sometimes, Jen be like, y'all in there getting rough and wrestling and all this other stuff. But she letting us boys be boys sometimes, sometimes it's too much and gets on her. And that's the thing. And it's okay to leave. It is okay to leave. As long as you make that phone call when you call back, say, look, I'm on my way home. That house better not look a mess when I get back.
That's why I said I need cameras in the boys' room now.
Right.
Change the game.
As long as you make that phone call and say, hey, I know y'all was in there playing in a little rough house and stuff. I don't need nothing broken when I get back. And that house better look in order by the time I get back from this grocery store or wherever I'm coming from, right?
So what other oh, look at my aunt's on. Hey Thea. Hey. I haven't called her with the baby lady. She probably like, baby, I haven't seen her. What other role models do you have?
So far as it was a couple of friends that I grew up with, and I saw how their parents were, because like I said, I grew up in mainly, I'm not gonna say a single household. My mom had a boyfriend here and there,
I think that'll be counting.
Yeah, that don't count.
My mom too, but
and see, that's the thing. You might have been in that household like that, and you didn't really get to see the relationship part of what it should have been, you know? So if you don't have a role model, right, were there people outside of your inter-family knit that you looked up as a role model, and did they have the values that you have right now in your marriage? Or did you implicate your marriage as with bringing values in? So I looked at my marriages like I took little pieces from everybody's marriage.
I was just gonna say that. So what if you don't have the household, they're separated, so you don't have the household, the friends are probably not the best.
Yeah.
The school, some people, it could be just rough all around. Now you might be that person that you're looking at, let's say a certain artist that is married or, has been with their wife for a long time, or looking at an actor or, just something.
So when you come across you don't have anybody, that's when you take the great attributes that you see out of their marriage and you implicate those. If you would want those in your marriage, you want to kind of duplicate that. You know what I mean? So like, if you seen like, okay, they got the longevity, I do want to sustain a long marriage. So if you say you want a long marriage and you want longevity in it, that means you're going to have to work hard to keep your marriage happy, to keep the communication. You got to look at what are those things that are keeping the longevity going. Right. And then say you want a marriage where that is affectionate. You got to look at somebody who loves on their spouse, right? And you say, oh, I want to love on my spouse like that. And I want my spouse to love on me that way. How can I get my spouse to love on me that way as well?
And even doing research, like there's books, there's mentors.
Yeah. So there's so many tools and resources if you don't have a role model to create a version from different people that you see that are married and that are successful, and to pull some of those good qualities from them and put it into your marriage and try to implicate to make your marriage that one combine all the way, the marriage that you're looking to have, right?
Yeah. And you can even talk to people and ask them, man.
And that's the thing, because some marriage you might see, oh, they're good in affection, but guess what? They might be bad in finances.
Mhm.
And you might see another marriage that's good in finances, and then so you say, then that's things when you ask, like, man, they're good with being affection. How can I, what do y'all do to keep each other, keep it spicy? You get that knowledge, and then you see this other marriage,
Which is okay to do.
and they're doing their finances, and they're really doing good in finances, and you say, hey, how do y'all work the finances together, or how do y'all work the business together, or how do the fact that you run the business and she don't work, how does that work and everybody's happy all around? Or
I'll tell you one thing, there's a few couples out there that I don't even know them like that, but they do a lot of fitness together.
Mhm.
And I don't know who. I tell Brandon, I'm like, babe, this is what we need to be doing. Like the way that they're like, and it could be someone like, I don't even know them, but somebody I follow, but I see them doing like workout videos with their spouse all the time. They're always getting like sexy and affectionate and spicing it up, and they both look good, especially if they both look good. They both like in shape. They both,
well, you see
you
where
can see they're into each other. Yeah.
And you know what? That's one avenue actually that, now that Jen's had the baby, that's where we're gonna get back to, far as the working.
That's why we gotta get this thing together.
Yeah,
We're gonna be too sexy together.
so
And we do not want to slip up now.
so the thing is, and that's how, Francisco really came about, honestly.
Oh God, here we go.
Our first child is because me and Jen, we was going to the gym, we was being workout partner, we was doing yoga, we was working out at least
But it goes
4
back
times
and
a
listen,
week.
so it goes back to how Brandon said a female makes the home and what he wants or what he likes. At that time, me and Brandon were not together.
And we had our own place.
We had our own place. We broke up, but we were still friends. But I still liked Brandon. I still was like, yo, I'm gonna get some more of that thing, So I knew that he was a big into workout, and I was like, okay, well, let's work out together, because I knew he liked it. I knew it turned him on, and it was a sexy thing for him. So I was like, all right, well, let's do something fun together. Let's work out to lose some weight. And then, of course, I was like, if he looks good, I look good. I probably get some after the works, So, but that's how eventually we ended up kind of getting back together, because in one of those situations, I did lose weight, which was great. He was great. I was looking at the pictures yesterday. I was like, damn, look at this B. Look at this young B with a 6-pack. Yo, I got some 6-pack Brandon pictures. And
that she still won't give to me.
Man, no,
put them out on the internet.
He will probably send them to some private DMs or something. So no. So but that's how we were in, the partnership came about, and then of course Francisco happened.
Yeah, and so that's what really got us really into it, is we started working out, we started looking good. We really was getting into we was doing yoga. We was doing, I'm telling you guys, we was working out at least 4 times within the week.
I was getting some a lot too.
And we was eating right too.
I was getting some a lot too.
So we was eating right and stuff like that. So that's how things worked out. But those are the things like you said, if you see a healthy couple and you want to say, hey, what is y'all eating regimen? How can we implicate some of y'all eating routines into our marriage? What are y'all eating to stay healthy?
Sexy workouts.
Yeah. What healthy foods are you eating that taste good instead of bland? Because I know a lot of people
besides me, of course.
Listen, this girl's so serious. So besides eating like the bland, healthy stuff, what is the good, healthy stuff that I can eat, and how can I eat and still get, the right amount of nutrition to my body and still work out, right? So these are things that you want to talk about, far as, if you don't have a role model. Now, if you do have a role model, I'm pretty sure it's great to see some of the things and question them on how things are going. And also when you go to different marriage like marriage small groups.
And that's the thing, a lot of people, a lot of people don't even do that. I noticed a lot of marriages don't go to like marriage communities, marriage retreats, marriage small groups at church. Now there's so many communities out there for marriages that you can meet other couples.
Yes.
Like we've met some couples that they've been married, 25, 30 years, loving each other, dating, the kids are in college, and we through church or through different groups, different outlets. And it's cool to ask that, like, and have some girl time with the wives and some guy time with the husbands and talk about different scenarios, different journeys, different things, and grow your marriage with that other resource, I think retreats are really good. I really want to start doing retreats.
Yeah, retreats. We haven't did a retreat yet, but we wanted to try a retreat just to see how that goes.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that'll be hilarious, because when it comes to retreats, it's one of them things like you're trying to be on your best behavior with your marriage.
But you see some craziness.
You see some craziness, and then some craziness might come out, or they might have you do some type of exercise that bring some side of you out that your spouse never seen, and I was like, what the heck, what I'm saying? But I'm pretty sure it's a good thing, and it's a real great exercise to actually bring the true you out, so y'all can be authentic with each other, right?
I think that should be it. Babe.
Yeah.
That should be good.
So I just wanted to go over that, right?
Good.
Far as like I said, if you don't have a role model, look for those attributes in people that are married and got good attributes in certain things. Not everything, but at least certain things. And question and ask, hey, I see you guys doing this and y'all look like y'all successful in that. How can I, can I get some tips, some pointers on what are y'all doing? And those are the things. Now, like I said, if you do have role models, it's still good to look at that role model, but look, don't get misled thinking that they're the perfect marriage, right? Don't get misled thinking they're the perfect marriage, and that's the only person that you're listening to or you're following, because everything is...
You never know.
Yeah,
and you don't want to get disappointed.
Yeah, you don't want to get disappointed, and you don't want, now the sheets or the covers are pulled up, and now you're like, oh wow,
or discouraged.
Yeah, and now it doesn't change your whole mindset on your marriage and attitude and aspect. So I hope we brought you some great value.
I told Brandon, I said, he pulled out the notebook and he was taking notes on the couch. I said, are you gonna make me try to get something like from you today? Because I like when Brandon gets his whole, I feel like he gets in like his little nerd moment, but he don't think it is, but I do, because he normally like this gangster dude walking around the house, right? So when he gets in his zone, I feel like he's like, his brain cap comes on and he's just like a little kid out of school, just typing and writing in his notebook. And I'm like, what? I'm like, he wrote a whole page. I'm like, what are you writing about? Like, can we talk about this? I don't have anything down. And I was like, you look good though. You look all smart and stuff.
No,
You always.
So I just wanted to, I hope we brought value to you guys tonight. I hope everything was great. Far as now that, you got some type of direction to navigate your marriage on, looking for role models or looking for attributes to put in your marriage to help your marriage grow and to help it prosper and build the empire and the foundation that you want in your marriage, as far as just being the marriage and bringing that generational health and love and wealth to your family as well. And wifey's getting tired now because she's been doing her little milk factory production.
And I'm hiring for a new production for my milk company because my husband has been fired the last few days. I gave him a written notice, didn't work. Verbal notice, didn't work.
I'm still one of them people that, even though they told me I'm fired, I'm still showing up at the job.
So now he's like, now I'm like verbalizing, dude, you're fired. I'm hiring for a new person that does my milk productivity, because he had been, this baby, I don't know what's going on. You see,
he sleep on the job too.
slacking on your pimping. I'm like, dude, what is happening? It was amazing with
Look,
sex
he
stuff.
laughing, look.
It's
Anyway,
out though. Well, okay, can you pray? Go
yeah,
pray.
we're gonna pray us out, all
Go
right?
ahead and pray.
Um,
Don't take forever.
I
Go,
got-
Jesus.
Yes, Spirit of the living God, thank you for again bringing this this idea for us to just get marriages involved in finding the role model, finding the great attributes of marriages that are successful, and pulling those and putting them into their marriage to create the perfect and growth in their marriage. Not the perfect marriage, because we know no marriage is perfect all the way, but there's always room for improvement in our marriages. So I just pray, Father, that you put your hand on every marriage that's listening, everybody that stayed tuned, and the people that are not listening. God, just have them reach out, have it reach out to them. Maybe we could share this to somebody that'll bring some type of value into their marriage. And thank you for all that you do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen, amen, amen. Let's fall asleep.
All right.
Amen.
You guys have a great night.
I'm about to go nap. See y'all. Thank y'all for chiming in. Love you.
We'll see y'all later.